Good morning, everybody. This is Scott with Pratt and Associates Realty. Happy to be here this morning. I want to talk to you some today about the National Association of Realtor lawsuit, housing prices, interest rates, and where I think 2024 will go. First, let's talk about housing prices. In January of this year, the average home sold around $345,320. Now, this is my FMLS in Atlanta, so this is their statistics. But it's Atlanta's a big market, so it might be a good indicator kind of market. I would feel February 360, so it keeps climbing up throughout the year. 369 in March, all the way up in June, 395, and back here in September, 382. Now 385 in October. So we're not really decreasing at the rate that I thought we were, but these interest rates hiking up to the rate that they are might have a lot to do with this. They were at first almost 8%, and then a couple of weeks ago, it's now in like the 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. Depends on your credit score and all that kind of stuff. But still, that's pretty high. Prices are still high. Interest rates are still high. Let me see, cumulative day. Let's look at days on market. So in January 2023, 30 days on the market. Then all the way here in June, only 11. So the days on the market means how long it has to sit. Higher days, bad. Lower days, good for a seller. Now, if you're a buyer, that's bad. And that's like that every single year. January's always been from Halloween to Christmas, and then January is about the slowest we get. Houses will sit for a long period of time. If you're trying to buy in the winter months. Now, I say that, and I wonder if a ton of buyers will flood the market and change these statistics in the next coming years because there's so much information and technology out there that people are looking at this stuff every day. But I kind of doubt it just because most people's lives are constrained around those holidays, and especially if you have kids in school, there's no way you're pulling them out of school in the middle of the year unless they just want to leave. Housing days on the market now in October 2023 are 15 days. Now, I don't have November's numbers yet, so I'll update this in the next coming days when November numbers come up. Closed sales in January, we only had 4,394. That's bad. Then it shot up in March to 7,715. The high water mark this year was May, and I remember that. When I was doing business this year, May was a good month for me. May, June, July, August, and right there in September, I was like, I smell something bad. It's already starting to dip down. Yes, August, 7,466. September, 6,500. And October, 6,100. So it's steadily decreasing. It may go back down there in those January 2023 levels, especially with interest rates as high as they are. My predictions for this next year. I think it's going to be a very rocky year. The Fed is planning on cutting interest rates. They say around June. It's been predicted as early as March. And I know for a buyer, they think to themselves, oh, that's great. Finally, I can get me an affordable loan. But the problem is they're still practicing quantitative tightening. So it's still going to be a lot harder to get a loan because they know that the market's going to be screwed up for years to come. And I think we're in another 10-year cycle. Because 10 years ago, in 2013, that's when I noticed the market start climbing up. 2014 especially. That's when a lot of my business started climbing up. And by 2017, 18, 19, I was full steam ahead. 2022 is my best year on record. And for a lot of agents, that was their best year on record. But these next few years are going to be a lot of decline. I think 2024 is going to be kind of tough. 2025, 6 might improve, 7. It's a long time, I know. But definitely this next year is going to be a year where we're all hiking up our pants legs and just wading through the cold water, trying to get to the other side. What can buyers expect? If they do cut rates, housing prices will just soar again. You'll have massive bidding wars because people are trying to get in at that low rate. You'll have a massive bidding war, and for sellers, they're going to dump off what they have. Any seller out there that wants to get rid of if they had to buy at a high interest rate, they want to try to get rid of it now, they're going to try to do that. Prices aren't going to go down. Now, if they keep rates higher for longer, then prices will start to kind of just shift a tad. If your average home price right now is around, like October this year, around 385 or 382, probably if they keep rates high, which I unfortunately doubt that they will, just given the information I'm hearing, you may see by this time next year in the 360s instead of 380s. I'd like to be right about that. We will come back this time next year and make sure I am right. And I will make a note of that. Yeah, Yahoo Finance seems to think that it might come in June. That's at least what I saw this morning. Um, I also follow another YouTube channel called Daily Financial News, and one of the things that he pointed out was most six-figure earners right now have cut their spending. They don't buy stuff anymore; they're buying experiences. So that's an interesting tidbit to think about. Everything's adjusting right now. The economy right now is a bit up in arms. It's a bit up. It's just kind of doing this. It's good, bad, good, bad. And we all don't really know where it's going to go. We're hoping the quantitative tightening and the higher interest rates kind of help stabilize things and get things back to a sense of normalcy. But I don't think this is a 6-month, 8-month cycle. This is another 10-year cycle. And it's going to take at least 10 years for so many things to unfold. We're going to need at least one more administration to know where things are going to start to go, either get it pointed in one direction or another. Even then, post that administration is when you're going to see the effects and changes. And at least some of these things are my opinion, but these are also things I've observed in the past. So the NAR lawsuit, let's get into that. So Michael Ketchmark is the plaintiff attorney who is suing the National Association of Realtors. On top of this, we have a Department of Justice lawsuit going on. We have so many attacks on the National Association of Realtors and agents in general. And I feel a lot of it's because people have this envy about agents making so much money off a sale. At the end of the day, we really do not make that much money. Off of a $10,000 commission, $3,000 of that off the top goes to taxes. Period. It sucks. And then another 1 to 2,000 goes to your broker, depending upon your commission rate. Sometimes it's even more than that. Then you have your MLS fees you have to pay per transaction. You have whatever kind of other brokerage transaction fees. You have your own personal overhead. You have bills to pay. You have debts to pay. Student loans, probably, if you have them. I don't have them, fortunately. Thank God I don't have that. But by the time it's all said and done, a $10,000 commission will generally get you around maybe $2,000 to $3,000 per month if you're lucky, that you can keep and save. And that's if you're making sales every single month. If you're not making sales every single month, but most agents are not. The average agent does not make a sale every single month. They should. It's great if they do. But most agents do not make a sale every single month. So, in the lawsuit, Michael Ketchmark states that the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and some of these MLSs in Missouri colluded together to keep commission rates high and to keep it at that 6% interest rate. First off, in our contracts, we don't have set commission rates. There's no the seller agrees to pay 6% right there. We don't have that. And I'll explain that more in detail later. But what they saw was that, another thing too, he said that they were colluding. In order to collude, you have to have communications with other organizations and companies. Hey, you do this and we'll do that. They don't have any kind of communication like that. So I'm really interested to see how this appeal goes. And I hope that we get some actual good, talented lawyers and that the NAR actually figures out how to represent themselves correctly instead of whatever kind of pageantry that they put on this last time. But anyway, I gotta rewind a little bit. Some of these MLSs and NAR who are owned by NAR. Now in Georgia, my FMLS and Georgia MLS are not owned by any association of realtors. It's just they partner together but not owned by them. And in the listing side, when you're putting in a listing, you can put in there how much me as a broker is willing to share my commission. I'll give this guy 3% to bring me a buyer. But in some of these MLSs, they didn't have a zero option. Maybe because we thought that was silly, or we thought that wasn't necessary. I don't know. Maybe I don't think it was the nature of the National Association of Realtors to just assume that zero wouldn't be. I don't know. Maybe they thought that that's what they should do. But in our contracts, we have to buy realtor contracts too. Every single year we have to buy realtor contracts. I'm no longer a realtor myself because it's incredibly expensive to be a realtor, especially if you're a broker. So I decided to just buy the contracts. And the contracts, since I've been in business in 2010, have never said that a seller has to pay the buying agent. It's always been an option for the seller to pay the buying agent. Now, it's really advantageous for a seller to offer to agents out there whose entire livelihood or their entire lifestyle is situated around finding a listing for their buyer. So it's nice to have that 3% incentive to, hey, look at this house, but I will bring this to you. If you do not have that incentive there, an agent will more than likely say to their buyer, if you want to buy that house, I will not represent you as an agent. I'll just represent you as a customer, or I just won't represent you, period, and we'll end our agency relationship, because I cannot work for free. I cannot negotiate this price for you, help you with inspections, help you in case it doesn't appraise for what it's asking. And it's worth it to the seller to offer that, to incentivize. You put yourself out there in a huge buyer pool. If you don't have that commission right there, you might as well be a FSBO in that case. And despite what a lot of sellers say, well, FSBOs are better. I don't have to pay this agent all this money, and I understand that. But to pay somebody to market your property and get you a sale that quickly, and to mitigate any of the headache and the drama, and a lot of times agents will go through a house. I do this too with a seller. I'll go through the house and say, we need to get this fixed. We need to get that fixed. That's not going to pass inspection. In fact, I'll even tell a seller, get you a pre-listing inspection. And if the buyers are balking about a particular thing, if you want to offer to give them that inspection report, we also cut our due diligence time. But I know this stuff, and you need to pay somebody to know this kind of information. And I've spent the last 13, 14 years educating myself and becoming experienced with this kind of information. And even a new agent who's not experienced, they're partnering with a broker who does have that kind of experience, and they're going to call their broker and say, hey, what do I do in this situation? So I'm not saying that you should always offer that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in the past, it was always an option. We never forced our broker or our clients to pay anything. And there is no such thing as a set commission rate either. It's illegal to have a set commission rate, and at least in the state of Georgia, it's considered an antitrust violation. So every single seller I've talked to in the past, I'm like, hey, 6% is what most people agree to. It's what we have found works for most people. But if you cannot do 6%, what can you do? I've even had sellers tell me hey, I'll offer you 7% if you get this done. But what we do in our listing contracts, we put, hey, I'll do this for 6%. I'm going to share that with another broker for 3%. I'm enticing someone else to come. I'm willing to share this to entice a buying agent to come over and buy your listing specifically. So that's why we do that. It's not that we're trying to force the seller to pay us, and then somebody who doesn't work for him. Yeah, he does. He kind of does in a way, not represent you, but regardless, you're not paying them, you're paying me, and I share that with them. So I wanted to clear that up, and I hope that does help some. I know there's a lot of debate around it. There's a lot of, well, you're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. I get that, but at the end of the day, I'm just going by what our contracts say. And our contracts say you agree to pay the listing agent this much. They agree to share it with that other person. I am taking the commission I earned for myself, and I'm agreeing even before we close to say, hey, I'll pay someone else to help market this thing. All I'm trying to do is entice a huge buyer pool, a huge buyer agent pool to come and show your listing and get it under contract and sold for you. So I get why a lot of people are angry at agents right now, and trust me, there are some agents in the business right now that I'm like, I get you passed the test. But you have no business donning a suit every day and showing people around because you're a psychopath or something. I don't know. I mean, I've had in recent years, like I'm talking this year, last year, and some of the year before, I've never had to deal with so much just psychopathy of these real estate agents. And that's the kind of the issue with the commission-based business. You're going to have really great people who get in there who are very entrepreneurial, and then you get some people who are desperate, and they'll do anything for $1, even if it's against you. So, but if you switch all this to W-2 employees, you're not going to get talented people whatsoever. If they're paid, hey, I'm going to get my paycheck anyway, man. Like I don't need to answer the phone tonight for to schedule your a showing for you tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed. It's 5 o'clock. I don't need to be here. I don't need to. You're not going to get the most driven, entrepreneurial, talented type of people. And I would I would post this to a lot of FSBOs for sale by owner. I post this to a lot of FSBOs out there. And I've even worked with a FSBO once before. I don't really work with them much, but I have worked. Well, I might have worked more than one. But I remember a guy who put a sign on his window, outside of his living room window, in a condo complex, and expected that would sell. And the only people who would see it were your fellow neighbors. We're not buying 2 units. I think he even put it on Zillow, got no response, got nothing. Because they don't know what to say in the listing. They don't know how to describe the property accurately. They don't know how to get it sold. And eventually I came to him and said, hey man, like, cause you're my neighbor, I'll give you a discount, and let me see what I can do. Within like a week I had it under contract. So it does pay to have an agent in there. But as far as this National Association of Realtors lawsuit, I feel like NAR did not represent themselves accurately or correctly. If they have been screwing with that buyer agency compensation thing, then yeah, that should be fixed. But was there intent there? Was there malicious intent there? I don't think so. So, to complain about me and my 6% while Michael Ketchmark's getting a 33% commission off this deal, he can stand to make about $800 million, which is probably the net of every single real estate agent's commission in the state of Georgia for this whole year. For one man, and we're arguing about greed and whatnot, like, let's put things in perspective. Now, what's going to happen with real estate agents? I hope nothing really changes, because at the end of the day, we've developed this system because it worked for everybody, and it made sellers happy, it made buyers happy, and we closed more deals doing it this way. Beforehand, we didn't have buyer agency representation, and a lot of people got sued for it. So I think it's advantageous for buyers to be represented. Well, then you should pay that. That buyer should pay that agent. Well, sure, but then, where's that going to come from? Is it going to come from, if they want to pull out of their own pocket and pay the agent, they are welcome to do so. We've always had that in our contracts. Always have had that in our contracts, at least since these lawsuits back in the 80s came out when buyers weren't represented. But if the buyer then pays the agent a commission, he can pay that outside of the deal. But if the buyer doesn't have that kind of money, what about his closing costs? Well, now the seller has to come up with more in closing costs because, the buyer's paying their agent, so you got to come up with more in closing costs. Then we got to inflate the price of the home so that way the seller can net more. See how this is getting kind of it's a bit mixed up. I don't feel that this lawsuit is well-intentioned. That's my conclusion. And sure, I'm biased because I'm a broker, but I don't know who this is really in the end going to help. Now, if at the end of this is these MLSs that didn't offer zero, if they're changed to offer zero, okay, fine, great. That's best in consumer advocacy. But as far as like changing up the industry and changing things up, I don't see it happening. I don't see anything changing. And if you thought you were going to save a ton of money on commissions, you just should ask, hey, like, I can't pay you this much. Can I pay you this? Oh, yes or no. And then you'll find an agent who might accept it. They're probably just a piece of junk agent, but whatever. So 2024, keep your eye on the interest rate. And the people who are going to win, unfortunately, are cash buyers. People who've got a lot of cash sitting in the bank. They're the ones who are going to win in this whole scenario. But the people like millennials predominantly, my advice to you would be to move further out, move to exceptional types of properties that don't fit the norm. If you want that nice condo in Midtown Atlanta, not going to happen. If you want that nice suburban property in Johns Creek, not going to happen. Not going to happen, probably, if you're making under 6 figures. But I don't mean to make you feel depressed. You know what?